spade. Great to be here with you guys today. Lisa Leslie goes on ESPN First Take, and let's call a spade here. She absolutely drags every single GM in the league that voted not to start their franchise with Caitlin Clark. She dragged them all through the mud. She talked business and sense. She talked dollar signs. She said, y'all know we're in a money-making business, right? Y'all know we're in a industry that people want to get paid in, right?
Lisa Leslie looked directly into the camera on First Take and didn't just disagree, she set the entire league office on fire. She told the world that every single WNBA GM who voted against Caitlin Clark should be fired on the spot. It wasn't just a hot take for ratings, it was a brutal, professional execution of the status quo. The air in the studio went cold because Leslie was speaking a truth that the mainstream media has been trying to bury for weeks. While the big networks are busy pivoting away from the Clark phenomenon, a legend of the game just called them all out for being financially illiterate and dangerously out of touch. The war for the future of the WNBA has officially begun.
1% from inside 5 feet and making more in that range than Stewie, Asia Wilson, Angel Reese, but we're not surprised. That's her kryptonite. Within 5 feet, Angel Reese's kryptonite, and Brittany Griner. Caitlin Clark haters really do anything but watch basketball. She's averaging 5.5 field goal attempts per game within 5 feet, finishing at a 90.9% clip. Caitlin Clark, one of the most underrated parts of her game is the ability to get by a defender and finish in the paint.
The silence from the big names in sports media has been deafening lately, but Lisa Leslie just shattered it. For days, the talking heads, like Stephen A. Smith, have gone curiously quiet about the biggest star the league has ever seen. It's almost as if there is a coordinated effort to pull the plug on the Caitlin Clark hype train right when it matters most, but Leslie wasn't having it. She stepped onto the ESPN set and dragged every single decision-maker through the mud. She didn't care about being polite or keeping friends in high places. She talked about the one thing that actually matters in professional sports, the cold, hard cash that Clark brings to the table, and the massive revenue everyone else is ignoring.
Boardroom, Caitlin Clark. We're talking about top-selling jerseys since 2024. Since Caitlin Clark has entered the WNBA, you got Steph Curry 1, Caitlin Clark 2, LeBron James 3, Luka 4, and Victor Wembanyama 5. This is put out by Boardroom via Fanatics and NBA Store. Boardroom, we see you, Caitlin Clark, the same group of schmoes that said Asia Wilson and Paige Beckers were more marketable. This is why you have to look at these lists sometimes from people like Boardroom and just laugh at them. This is why you don't take their...
Leslie was responding to a shocking poll where WNBA GM selected Paige Beckers as the player they would most like to start a franchise with. To Leslie, this wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was a fireable offense. She called a spade, reminding everyone that we are in a money-making business. This isn't a hobby, and it isn't a charity. It's an industry where people want to get paid, and there is only one person currently moving the needle. Leslie's frustration was palpable as she dismantled the logic of the people running the teams. If you aren't picking the player who packs the arenas and secures the sponsorship deals, you aren't doing your job, you are failing your organization.
Of schmoes that said Asia Wilson and Paige Beckers were more marketable. This is why you have to look at these lists sometimes from people like Boardroom and just laugh at them. This is why you don't take their opinions too seriously. You just have to laugh when they come out with bogus lists like Asia Wilson, Paige Beckers, Caitlin. What are we doing here? What are we talking about here? There's no conversation who the most marketable player is in the WNBA. You think Kathy was selling Asia Wilson?
Think about the sheer impact we are seeing right now. Never in the history of the WNBA have we seen a single player force entire teams to move their games into larger arenas just to accommodate the crowd. That is the Caitlin Clark effect. Leslie pointed out that, if you are a GM, your primary responsibility is to bring in revenue. You are supposed to be a steward of the business. By choosing anyone else over Clark, you are essentially choosing to lose money. It is a level of foolishness that Leslie couldn't wrap her head around. She made it clear that a rising tide lifts all boats, and Clark is the only one creating the tide. If the GMs can't see that, they don't belong in the front office.
Lisa Leslie on ESPN First Take. Let's take a listen to what Lisa Leslie had to say.
Before the season started, WNBA GM selected Paige Beckers as a player they would most like to start a franchise with. What's your reaction to that?
Well, all those GMs probably going to get fired because this is a money business. And money is about Caitlin Clark, who is the player who has made, never in the history of the WNBA have we had a player force teams to get into larger arenas. I've never seen that happen. And so if you're the GM, you're obviously supposed to be bringing in money. That's revenue.
Right.
I'm going with Caitlin Clark. What you think, Steve?
Of course, I've been saying Caitlin Clark. Rising tide lifts all boats.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
What makes this even more insulting is the current state of the media landscape. We've entered a strange phase where the mainstream platforms that once rode the Clark wave have suddenly jumped ship. Where is the media that was so vocal in her favor just a few weeks ago? Stephen A. Smith has his show every day, but the Caitlin Clark talk has evaporated. Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright have massive platforms, but they've gone silent. Even Shannon Sharpe and the Nightcap crew seem to have moved on to other things. It's a bizarre disappearance that suggests the industry is ready to return to its old ways, ignoring the most marketable asset they have ever had.
Having a down couple of games, expectations that she set for herself, expectations that we have for her because we think she's that great, even those down couple of games, better than anything Paige Beckers could do. Caitlin Clark's average right now, better than anything Paige Beckers can muster. Completely healthy, no injury concerns whatsoever. No Paige Beckers back brace. And Caitlin Clark is still putting up the numbers she's putting up. I believe I saw a stat. Caitlin Clark, the amount of time she had 18 points and 8 assists, she's number one in that category.
The narrative being pushed is that Clark is struggling, but the numbers tell a completely different story. While the haters claim she can only shoot threes, the tape shows she is dominating in areas nobody expected. Right now, Caitlin Clark is shooting a staggering 91% from inside 5 feet. She is finishing at the rim at a higher clip than some of the most dominant bigs in the league, including Aya Wilson and Brittany Griner. She's averaging over 5 field goal attempts per game in the paint and finishing with elite efficiency. The critics who said she was too small or too soft to handle the physicality of the pro game are being proven wrong every single night.
Numbers she's putting up. I believe I saw a stat. Caitlin Clark, the amount of time she had 18 points and 8 assists, she's number one in that category. Already. In 54 games, Caitlin Clark is number one in that category. Passing Skylar Diggins, passing Diana Taurasi, passing Chelsea Gray, passing Becky Hammond. You name it, she passed them. She is going to go down as one of the best, if not the best. Scratch that. Sorry, my bad. She's going to go down as the best point guard to ever play the WNBA. That's without a doubt.
The most underrated part of her game is her ability to blow past defenders and finish through contact. People are so obsessed with the step-back three and the logo shots that they are missing the clinical way she is dismantling defenses inside. She is playmaking, rebounding at an elite level for a guard, and scoring at the rim. Yet, the mainstream media acts like she's a one-trick pony who has been figured out by the league. It is a total fabrication of the truth. The reality is that Clark is already one of the few individuals in this league who can finish around the basket at this high of a clip, regardless of the defensive pressure she faces every possession.
He hasn't talked to Caitlin Clark at all. Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd has a show. He hasn't talked to Caitlin Clark at all. Nick Wright. He has a show. He hasn't talked to Caitlin Clark at all. Shannon Sharpe, Nightcap. They haven't talked Caitlin Clark at all. Dan Dockage, an Indiana native, someone who played basketball at Indiana University, Hoosierville, had Lynn Dunn on his radio show. Caitlin Clark's rookie season. He doesn't talk Caitlin Clark anymore. The only one still talking Caitlin Clark day in and day out from the
marketability argument is where things get truly ridiculous. Recently, lists have surfaced claiming that players like Aya Wilson or Paige Buchers are more marketable than Clark. But if you look at the actual data from Fanatics and the NBA store, the truth is undeniable. Since Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, she has the number 2 top-selling jersey in the entire world. She is sitting right behind Steph Curry and ahead of LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Victor Wembanyama. You cannot fake those numbers. You cannot spin that data. People are voting with their wallets, and they are choosing Clark over every other superstar in the world of basketball. This is exactly why Leslie was so fired up on First Take. She knows that when Kathy Engelbert goes into meetings with broadcast partners, she isn't selling them on the status quo. She's selling them on the Clark phenomenon. When Adam Silver is trying to negotiate a new broadcast deal for the WNBA, he isn't leading with any other name. He is leading with the woman who is breaking jersey sales records and selling out arenas. For GMs to vote for anyone else as a franchise cornerstone is a slap in the face to the business reality of the sport. It shows a lack of vision that could ultimately hold the entire league back from reaching its full potential. Leslie didn't stop at the business side. She also addressed the talent gap. She pointed out that even when Clark has a down game, her numbers are still better than anything the competition could muster. The expectations Clark has set for herself are so high that a great game for anyone else is considered a failure for her. She is currently healthy, playing without injury concerns, and putting up historic production. In just a handful of games, she is already leading the league in specific statistical categories that usually take years to master. She is passing legends like Diana Taurasi and Becky Hammon in efficiency markers while still being a rookie. The stat that really jumps out is how quickly she has reached the top of the list for 18.8 assist games. She is already number 1 in that category, surpassing icons who have played hundreds of games. We are watching the evolution of the best point guard to ever play in the WNBA, and yet the media is treating her like a footnote. Leslie's appearance on ESPN was a reminder that we shouldn't let the narrative be controlled by people who don't actually watch the games. She's doing things on the court that have never been done before, and she's doing them while carrying the financial weight of an entire league on her shoulders. The betrayal from the mainstream media is the most frustrating part of this saga. It feels like the big networks used Clark for the tournament ratings, and then discarded her once the professional season started. Dan Dockage, an Indiana native who should be her biggest supporter, has gone quiet. The only person still consistently pushing the conversation forward in the mainstream is Jason Whitlock. Everyone else has retreated to their safe spaces, leaving the fans and content creators to do the heavy lifting. It shows that the media frenzy was never really about supporting Clark or the league. It was about chasing a temporary trend. This abandonment proves that Clark's success is truly a grassroots movement. It wasn't the media that pushed her forward. It was the fans who recognized her greatness and refused to look away. Her game is what carries her, not a PR machine. When Lisa Leslie speaks up, she is representing that massive base of supporters who are tired of the disrespect. She is calling out the hypocrisy of a media machine that claims to want the WNBA to grow, but then ignores the very person who is making that growth possible. It is a moment of truth for the league. Do they want to be a niche product, or do they want to be a global powerhouse? The GMs who voted for Paige over Caitlin are living in a fantasy world. While Paige is a great player, she comes with significant injury concerns and hasn't shown the same ability to transform the economics of the game. Clark is a durable, high-output machine who has proven she can handle the spotlight and the pressure. By picking Paige, those GMs are essentially saying they prefer the old way of doing things, a way that kept the league in the red for decades. Leslie's warning was clear. If you keep making those kinds of decisions, you are going to get fired, and you are going to deserve it. Business doesn't care about your feelings. We are seeing a shift in how the league is perceived, and Clark is the catalyst. The fact that she is out selling LeBron James in jersey sales should be the lead story on every sports show in America. It is a tectonic shift in the culture of sports. But instead, we get silence or manufactured debates about her marketability. Leslie's refusal to hold back on First Take was a breath of fresh air because it cut through the noise. She spoke as a legend who wants the league to succeed, and she knows that success is tied directly to the number 22 in Indiana. Anything else is just a distraction from the goal. The internal politics of the WNBA are clearly at play here. There seems to be a level of resentment toward Clark from the established guard and the decision-makers who didn't see her coming. They want to prove that the league was already great without her, which is true, but it wasn't profitable. Clark brings the profit. She brings the eyeballs. She brings the relevance that the league has craved since its inception. Leslie's Spade a Spade commentary was a direct hit on that resentment. She's telling the league to put aside its ego and embrace the gold mine they've been handed before they blow it. If you look at the trajectory of Clark's career, she has always been the underdog who over-delivers. From Iowa to the pros, she has silenced every critic who said her game wouldn't translate, and now she's doing it in the WNBA while the media tries to pretend it isn't happening. Leslie's intervention on national television was necessary because it forced the conversation back to reality. You can't ignore a player who is finishing at a 90% clip at the rim and selling more jerseys than the king. The facts are too loud to be suppressed for long, no matter how hard the mainstream media tries to pivot. The question now is how long the abandonment can last. As Clark continues to rack up 18-8 games and continues to draw massive crowds, the media will eventually have to come crawling back. They need her more than she needs them. She has her own fan base, her own momentum, and a level of support that doesn't rely on a 4-minute segment on a morning talk show. Leslie knows this, and her comments were a way of telling the media that they are the ones losing out, not Clark. The revolution is being televised, even if the biggest networks are trying to change the channel. Lisa Leslie's legacy is built on being a pioneer, so it makes sense that she is the one standing up for the next great pioneer. She sees the same fire in Clark that she had, and she won't stand by while the people in the front offices try to downplay it. This isn't just about basketball, it's about the soul of the league. Are they going to be a league that rewards greatness and impact, or are they going to be a league that plays favorites and sticks to outdated scripts? Leslie has made her choice, and she's challenging everyone else to do the same before the opportunity passes them by. The data doesn't lie, and the people don't lie. When you see arenas being upgraded and jerseys flying off the shelves, you are seeing a cultural phenomenon that transcends the sport. Clark is a once-in-a-generation talent who has been gifted to a league that was starving for a superstar of this magnitude. To have GMs voting against her and media members ignoring her is a level of self-sabotage that is hard to watch. Leslie's bluntness was exactly what was needed to wake people up. She didn't come to play nice, she came to save the business from its own worst instincts. As we move forward into the season, the pressure will only increase. Clark will continue to put up numbers, and the crowds will continue to show up. The mainstream media will have to decide if they want to be part of the story or if they want to be left in the dust. Stephen A. Smith and the rest of the crew might be quiet now, but the roar of the crowd in Indiana is getting harder to ignore. Leslie has laid down the gauntlet, and now the rest of the world has to decide if they are brave enough to follow her lead and speak the truth. The grassroots movement is stronger than any corporate media strategy. Clark's supporters are loyal, vocal, and they aren't going anywhere. They see the 91% finishing rate, they see the assists, and they see the impact on the community. They don't need a teleprompter to tell them that they are watching history in the making. Lisa Leslie just gave a voice to those millions of fans who have been wondering why the media went cold. She reminded us that the game is about the players who changed the world, and there is no doubt who that player is right now. In the end, Caitlin Clark will go down as the best point guard to ever step onto a WNBA court. That isn't hyperbole, it's a projection based on the incredible start she has already had. Whether the GMs get fired or the media comes back to the table, the result will be the same. The sailboat is rising, and it's taking everyone who is willing to hop on board to new heights. Leslie's message was a wake-up call to a league that is on the verge of greatness. You either get behind